the public via YouTube every single Wednesday. Thanks for joining us this morning. This is Spartan speaking, by the way. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a breakdown of what's going to happen once I'm done speaking here. Beth will come on. She'll give you a breakdown of the macro environment, any of the bigger picture and news events that happened over the course of the evening, as well as this morning that makes sense to be looking at. She'll also be going through any of the ETFs and also big caps that she's looking at for today. Once that's done, I'm going to come on. We're going to go through some names that are gapping up, gapping down. We'll talk about the news associated with those gap up, gap downs, build an action plan for them, go through the technicals, as well as go through the SPY, the FANG, the VIX, QQQ, and IWM. After that's done, Self Beach will come on. He'll go through the individual names that he's looking at today, as well as the macro environment, bonds, etc. And then we'll do a quick little recap of those individuals that I talked about. And we'll be ready for the open. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead, pass over to Beth, and I will talk to you guys in a little bit. Beth, if you're ready, it's all yours.
Hi, Amity. Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, friends. Welcome. Wednesday morning here. Promoted, Spartan Trading. Lots to talk about, big picture ideas. And the sky is not falling. It's okay. Obviously, we have to talk about the government shutdown. We have to talk about the pullback in the market. We have to talk about commodities. When it's all said and done, it's okay. A lot of quarter end stuff going on, right? Tax harvesting, offsetting gains and losses, right? So much to think about. Yesterday, a couple things happened which really caught my attention, and clearly the consumer confidence number, conference board, was the lowest we saw in 7 months. So that, well, it's still pretty good, right? The thing that really caught my attention, well, two things, was the build. Okay, on the oil side, API crude stocks was a build. So we've been getting draws and draws and draws and draws. The reality is, and should be understood, the issue is not so much in the United States. The issue in terms of supply and prices is China in Europe and the UK. In the United States, that's not the situation in terms of supply, right? How this, I still think we're getting into a super cycle, doesn't matter. Institutions don't have exposure, they're gonna wanna get exposure. They're gonna come out, the economists, and basically say they're gonna put their individuals that they manage money with in oil again, yada, yada, yada. Right. We saw yesterday an embarrassment in terms of on the Senate banking side, in terms of calling Powell, well, you know what she said. It's an embarrassment. But then again, it's an embarrassment of Congress in and of itself, right? So we have EIA, we have to keep a look on. Now, Powell, there's a fireside chat going on overseas with Lagarde, Governor Bailey from the UK, Bank of England, and Powell. So they're basically having a little fireside chat. So we'll see if anything comes out of that. And obviously the EIA, we have to keep an eye on. Okay. All right. Let's take a peek. Q&A, everything you should know about government shutdowns. Okay, there's a big difference between discretionary, right, which basically would be impacted 2018, 2019 air travel. Yeah, well, what can I say? Hang your head in shame, Democrats and Republicans. That's all I have to say. Right? Social Security, Medicare, all these different services, whether they have the capacity to basically postpone. Government workers aren't in that necessary category, right? National parks aren't, right? Environmental and food inspection. Let's move on. Bailout. I want to take a walk down memory lane. So anybody who thinks that this is just the Democrats, okay? Both sides are guilty of basically being a pain in the ass. Politics, 2008. Let's take a walk down memory lane. 2/3 Democrats voted for the financial bailout, 1/3 Republicans did, end of story. And Bush was president. Trump was president, we had the same thing, but Democrats helped in terms, well, anyways, you get the drill. Both sides, disgusting. All right, so let's take a look here. China, chain of China coming in trouble for Tesla, Nike, and other S&P 100. Okay. Agenda. Okay. Look, I continue to say this. Nancy Pelosi will not bring a vote to the floor unless she has the numbers to get it passed. Tomorrow, she's only bringing the infrastructure bipartisan bill. She's not going to be mucking around with that 3.2 trillion stuff. Okay. She's not stupid. She will only bring forward what will pass. No surprises there. Yellen, panic. I don't know. Well, the thing that really bugged me was obviously we have to talk about Jamie Dimon, right? What he had to say. The sky is falling. Anyways. Block latest efforts, yada. I don't understand how anybody can find this a political positive on either side by doing this stuff. It's all politics right now. And you know what? It doesn't matter with the market because the market right now is focused on oil, commodities, and the bonds. This is just side noise. It's going to get done. Who knows when, but it gets done. I think this last time it actually lasted more than 2 days. I think it was in the 1970s, something like that. Long time. Okay. This is a big deal with the China Belt and Road. So, gee, this is what he has been hanging his hat on as a massive accomplishment since 2013. This is when it started. Guess what? It's kind of falling apart right now. Jamie, potentially catastrophic. Jamie? I don't like headlines. I just don't like those. And you know what? These sensational headlines are a pain in the butt. I remember the good old days when you didn't have to worry about all this stuff. I mean, CNBC didn't even exist. You got your Financial Times in the morning. Your fingers had ink on them after you read it. Wall Street Journal, you got it delivered. And better times, chipmaker, wow, okay, once again. You know, there's clearly such a demarcation line in terms of the quality chip makers and those who are not. I mean, but it was funny because Kramer was thinking that this was the moment for Micron. Yesterday he was talking about it. Anyways, Germany sidelined EU. This is interesting, right? Home price growth hit continuation. They say that's going to continue, right? Benioff says we're not at all going back to the office. We're not all. Well, you know that, and I agree with that. Right? A lot of political stuff today, but it does impact the market, right? Somewhat. But we have to be aware of these things, and does it actually matter one way or the other? I don't know. We'll find out, right? So this is really Wall Street Journal had a really great article in terms of going forward. The tailwind in terms of growth as a result of the ad nauseum quantitative easing. I mean, look at this, seasonally adjusted, what they're forecasting going forward. Fantastic, right? 6.2% fourth quarter this year, right? Then it starts to come down, but still these are fantastic numbers. But you know, I do have to say I'm a little concerned with the consumer confidence, right? You know, it's all about the consumer. That's why we look at the retail stocks, stuff like that. This is what I'm talking about. Spain's inflation at 13-year high. This is going to be a challenge for Lagarde in the ECB with interest rates, right? This is really stagflation. Not good. Let's see what our gal was doing. She was buying. Well, we knew she was buying HUD, Roku, ZM coin, but she continues to sell Tesla across the board. Now, don't forget, Tesla's pretty large exposure she has in a lot of these different things, the different funds, right? I mean, it's, you know, I mean, anything above 1% for her is a big deal. So we'll see how this plays out. She sold Google. That's kind of unusual, right? But it's not a big position. I think it's just fascinating to watch her do her thing. Right? Got upgrades, downgrades. Let's see what's going on here. Busy, 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 busy. A lot. 13 upgrades, 10 downgrades, and 11 initiations. AFRM, Jeffries, hold. But for me, once again, it's all about the top dogs and dogettes. Found a lot of dogettes. Jeffries, there we go, but she's only 51%. Let's see what we got. MTTR, ISRG. I love ISRG. I actually have limit orders to buy ISRG. I didn't get filled though. Seasonality trade, but this is one that fantastic swing that we've been doing on and off. I gotta look to buy that. Okay. See how it plays out. AFRM buy Morgan Stanley, 22% yesterday. Energy. Yeah. Quarter end. Now, this is what's really interesting. If you look in terms of the fear and greed index, it actually was lower a week ago. So every day I've been telling you SQQQ's been bought, and it's not been, the hedges have not been going on the option side. They've been going on the equity side. But the put call ratio did get to its upper quadrant extreme, a 0.75. Normally it's around, the range has been 0.40 to 0.60. So this was an extreme, just like the same thing with the VIX. But the VIX has really some interesting staying power, which is a little bit disconcerting, right? Energy, let's talk. All right, here we are. Let's look at year to date. Believe it or not, the oil optex is not at its high that it had in June. But this is the thing that bugs me, is that corporate insider just not happening. Small speculator not buying it either. USO fund optex coming down, really interesting. XLE components above the 50, well, it didn't take much for that to happen. And here's the energy fund assets, some buying, but look at this. They really bought in July. Really interesting stuff going on. To me, yesterday's dip was at the ability to buy some of the things I had limit orders in for my 2024 long-term swings, right? I got Danaher, I get filled on some Danaher longer dated stuff. Interestingly enough, I didn't get filled on any of my, I did add to my Microsoft portfolio long-term swings as well. So for me, anytime I get that sort of 5% or whatever pullback for some of these names, if nothing else has happened except profit taking, and I know that the whole taper talk and yada, 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 but don't worry, because I showed you in the past, right, that when this does happen in the 1970s, yes, the market does pull back initially until it gets comfortable, then it screams higher. So anyways. All right, small caps, sideways consolidation. You know this because I talk about it ad nauseum, right? Small caps call not nudgem. Didn't commit to correction 4 times, yada, yada, yada. Rotation, 136. Number of days since the 52-week high, 136. Russell 2000 after 135 days without a 52-week high and less than 20% drawdown. It's bullish, but not a lot. I don't kind of like that. We got seasonality. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. You know the drill, right? Recovering from near record surge, I give him breath is in the toilet, yada, yada, yada. Here's a McClellan oscillator below here, yada, yada, yada. Seasonality, here we go. Zoop. So we have a couple more days, right? Mid-October, that's when things start to pick up. You can see in the November and December, beast mode. I don't know if it's going to happen, but that's what it looks like. Fund flows yesterday, IWM, right? Financials, yeah, which was interesting, right? Into SPY. A little bit into GLT, but SPY has been the benefactor of so many pullbacks and money rotation. Here's the breath, energy, red, lots of green. This is fantastic reset on the breath side. Like this is really fantastic. I love it. Why? It's a tailwind. Right? That's what we need. Here's our heat map, lots of green. TLT3. That's why we got out of those TLT puts yesterday. I don't know how long we're going to stay in it. It's not going to take much of a bounce for this to reset. I'm just saying XLK teens. So SMA single digits, XLV, XLU, IBB. Oh my goodness gracious. Fantastic. Let's see what's getting perky out there. GLE, this is the hype, what's going on in social media right now. Barrick, GLEO, TEVA, XOM. We've been following XOM sweeps and money flows. So that's been working out fairly well. AMC, PLTR, not that bad, right? GM, ACB, we saw a lot of retail buying of ACB. CLOV, Novavax, right? QS, BBIG, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, all of that. Let's take a look. VIX. This is really fascinating because we are getting, higher lows, right? But this is meant to go down, so it should, the longer this stays up here, the more concerned I will be. I personally think it's like this sort of narrative, but it potentially could be kind of this sort of narrative. But on the risk reward here, I just don't see any catalyst that would get us back up to this. It would have to be like 4 or 5% decline in the market, something like that, intraday. That would get me interested. Bonds, right? Yields down across the board, not flattening, steepening a little bit, right? That's what we want to see. Canada, well, you can see Japan is the only one that has yields up. Let's take a look. 5-year. Guess what? I went back and I said, what is this? Is there a pivot here? And there actually is a pivot here, going back to 2010. This is why I look at longer dated stuff, right? Interesting, right? Got rebuffed, trying to fall back below this. Don't forget, this is a monthly, right? So we'll have to see how this plays out tomorrow. And then, it obviously could stay above here, but this is still the upper end of the quadrant. And I still don't think, to be honest with you, there's anything out there, aside from this is commodity based, but still, I don't know. I think they're going to be offsets on the macro side in terms of the economic softening slide. Here's the 530. Look at this, okay? Fascinating, right? So the yield curve steepening, not flattening, pulled back, and it's right back below the pit, right here at the pivot. So it's like it never really happened yesterday. Fascinating, right? Monthly. That's why I look at these things. 10-year, this one's still holding up tenaciously. Pulled back below the 61.8%. So this is the pivot right here. I think we're defining a new range, and I think it's pretty obvious that this is probably the new range where we're in right now. Okay, probably right about there. Right? And if you look at it, we're in the mid. It's the German, pull back off the extension. This is going to be interesting to see how that plays out, right? German, US. German actually is losing against the US right now. China, pulling back their interest rates. This is what they have to do, right? With the Evergrande shit show, dog and pony, right? And here we have here, this is the, right here, you can see. It's, dollar at the upper quadrant, reverted back to the mean. This is at the 50 EMA on the monthly. Not a good thing for the markets, right? We don't let the dollar, they don't like when the dollar goes up. Okay. All right, here's the Chinese yuan doing nothing. All right, let's talk overseas. DAX, still in the quadrant. This is no damage done on the monthly. And it even reclaimed this extension. Notable, right? Just a pullback within a consolidation top, right? It should start to go higher. No damage is done in terms of the long-term perspective. Now, Fez is a little bit different, okay? We really do have to, what's notable, first off, we didn't take out last week's low. That's a big deal, right? Bottom end of the Bollinger, let's see if it can start to reclaim here, right? Irregardless, it did make a higher low notable. Let's see if it can break the downtrend line, okay? EFA held the extension going back to November last year, right? Did not take out last week's low, notable. EEM did not take out last month's low, bouncing off this extension, reverted to the mean. This is BABA, Tencent, the drill. Shanghai Composite, this is really interesting. So the Shanghai was holding up while BABA and KWeb and CQQQ all pulled back. So we're seeing that this is a broader pullback in terms of the Chinese market, as opposed to just the ETFs and foreign investors. So this is a big deal, right? And it makes sense to me, right? It should hold. It is holding this extension on the weekly. It reverted back to the mean. It could get all the way back down here. So this is really fascinating to see what's going on, because if you look in terms of what's going on with the K-Web, right? It had a shit show going all the way down here, but it is making higher lows. And BABA, it was the first time that we saw BABA actually start to gain against its counterparts, right? So we had a double bottom. This is a weekly on BABA, right? It's trying to reclaim the pivot. We'll see what happens with that. Downtrend line is very steep. So next week should be really interesting. Here's BABA K-Web, bounced off, starting to reclaim. So I'm just thinking for the short term, at least, we've seen a meaningful low in BABA. This is monthly, okay? And don't forget, I mean, BABA was taken to the woodshed for most of this year, right? Starting from October of last year. I mean, it didn't pop, but then rolled over. So, I mean, this is a big deal. BABA JD, interesting. Let's see if it holds. It basically is in the mid. I really don't have anything here, okay? So JD potentially could continue on. But if you look here in terms of BABA against the CQQQ, look at the bounce that happened against BABA in the CQQQ, right? Notable, right? So it looks like we have a double bottom, meaningful low. The question is going to be is, do we actually break out here? And, you know, I can kind of move this around, but you get the drill, right? So BABA, right? Nifty 50 still looks fantastic, the Indian market, my goodness. All right, let's do it. Growth against value. Since the beginning of time. So we shouted out this whole issue, right? We're basically sitting on a fib right now. I don't think we're done yet in terms of, I think what's going to happen is we're going to kind of do this, go up and go down and up and whoop. So, and that's basically, well, that doesn't, you know, quite, basically to the end of the year. I kind of extended it too far, right? Here's IWM, this is growth versus value. You can see that value is starting to kick gross ass right now, right? Internals, right? So we'll see how it plays out. FANG. Okay, take a deep breath, everyone. This is the monthly on FANG, right? No damage done. Didn't even take out last month's low. Notable. Take a deep breath. Right. Quickly, Russell against the Dow. Russell is trying to break out against the Dow. This monthly hasn't happened yet. Russell against the S&P, holding its extension that goes back to April 2020. Let's see, we still have a little bit of time. A couple more weeks before this actually starts getting interesting. Here's FANG against the Russell. FANG is losing against the Russell, notable. The key, and this is a weekly, right? Notable. So this is kind of telling you what's going on in terms of the internal rotation, right? XRT, retail, no damn, all right, the monthly, yeah, it did break this uptrend line. I understand. But if you look in terms of its consolidated sideways pattern, right, that goes back for multiple months since April, it's still holding up fine. Right? No damage done. So where does things get to be squishy? Obviously, if we take out this low right here, which is 87.93. And I don't think that happens. I just don't. Now, it could happen in the next earnings cycle. We want to see retail. We want to see the consumer. We want to see the, you know, a lot of what's been holding it up has been back to school stuff, but, you know, that's obviously no longer a play, right? Okay, that's my story. It's a good story. It's time for me to pass it on to Spartan. Welcome once again for those of you joining us. Pre-market here. This is what we do every day. Are you ready, sir?
Just 1 minute, please, Beth.
Not a problem. Okay, XRT, this is what I'm looking at. Next thing, the transports. You know, the Dow theory, yada, yada. So this has basically put a top in May, right? And it's been kind of signaling something's going on, something's going on. But don't forget, I mean, you know, last time the market screamed higher, right? It consolidated for years before it actually confirmed the market higher, making all-time highs, right? It took a long time. I think we're in a consolidative range. The one thing that really interests me is this FedEx UPS spread. Now that granted, FedEx guided lower and FedEx had some issues on the earnings, no question about it. So UPS, what this is saying is UPS is kicking ass against FedEx right now. So being long UPS, short FedEx has been the trade since December, right? We have to keep an eye on this mainly because we are getting to levels, right, that go back quite some ways as a pivot. Okay, and you can see right here, August of 2005. Right? So it is making lower highs, right? We want to see it make lower lows, right? Looks like a massive H on the monthly. So this is really interesting. I talked about, I like the rails better than, FedEx, UPS. And I think that's going to continue. We'll just have to keep an eye on it. Okay. All right, let's quickly look at what's going on with natural gas. Right, this is basically a breakout on the CRB, and that has to do with crude. Natural gas got really extended. That's why I put on some KOLD as a hedge. Right, we took profits on some of our COG, right? I'm in some other natural gas trades like NAT. I was filled on some Schlumberger on the pullback. So I have that. I'm in UNG and I'm in XLE, right? As well as USO. And I did buy some SCO as a hedge. I want to see what's going to happen here. I don't know if we're going to get much of a pullback, but we talked about it yesterday. We had a lot of extensions and gaps that we had to fill. So just be aware of that. I mean, we have this natural gas gap, and that's kind of why I wanted to be in the KOLD. I'm going to probably hold it another week or so. This should get filled, right? We'll see. It depends on the flows. If I start to see a lot of money coming in onto the natural gas side, then we'll get out of the KOLD, but I took a little bit off and still have some, right? So here's crude against KOLD, right? I'm sorry, crude against natural gas. So you can see here, this is a massive monthly triangle consolidation, right? From what everybody's telling us, this is what's going to happen, right? Everybody's saying that natural gas is has a capacity to double in the next few months. I don't know if that's true, but I'm looking at the spread, and obviously if we start to break some of these levels, right, then that would be a correct narrative that would cause this to start to obviously continue to come down. Okay. So just keep an eye on that spread. All right, so here's USO against UNG. This is the only way I could, kind of look at it. You can see right here we're at a pivot, right? And this pivot goes back to here, 2011. So just keep an eye on this. This is what I look now. This is where you take profits. Okay, so if you long a lot of UNG, again, and then I'm not in the spread per se, but this is where you would see a little bit of a bounce in terms of USO against UNG.
All right, Beth, I'm ready to come on.
Let's have fun.
All right, thank you so much, Beth. Morning, guys. What's going on? Let me just pop up the screen share here. There we go. So, guys, if you're new to chat, make sure to click the Discord link that was emailed out to you. If you don't see it, it's in your junk mail. And then we'll go through the basically instructions later on. But when you do come in, go to the new to chat information section and just simply read through that in the Discord. All right. So pre-market tickers on watch, guys. Let's take a look at what we got going on today. A couple different things. mRNA, UPST, BNTX, Afrin, LCID, GOVX. Of course, there's a ton of names that are just gapping up with the SPY today. So that's mainly what's going on, but there is a little bit of news on some of these names. So let's take a look at that. So mRNA, UPST, BNTX, bouncing in sympathy with the market now for last day's sell-off. Afrin to join PayPal and allowing users to buy and sell Bitcoin and other cryptos. Stocks gapping back up on that, as well as in sympathy with the market for sure. Lucid, Tesla rival Lucid. Basically, they talked about a bunch of their delivery numbers yesterday, and this morning. But one of them stands out. Says their air sedan deliveries to start in late October. Booking crosses 13,000 cars. So stocks gapping up on that. GOVX stock is trading higher on Jetapin in licensing pack for solid tumor, stocks gapping up a little bit there. Let's take a look at these names from a technical standpoint intraday. So first two we're going to be looking at, guys, are mRNA and UPST. So let's take a look at those. Whoa. Before we do, one sec, guys. Misprint on SPY and I can't zoom in. Jesus. All right, sorry. It's going to be make it difficult to look at the SPY today. Okay. All right, let's take a look at mRNA. Let's take a look at UPST. You'll see what I'm talking about when I go to my SPY chart. All right. So mRNA, a little bit of a gap back up after last day's pull. Let's take a look at that daily chart. We did hit the 50 MA, a little bit of a bounce off of that level, which we also have an extension into that 50 MA. So strong support and strong reversal type of pattern setting up. Pivot to the upside today is going to be the 394.49. This level is able to be reclaimed. We got room towards 403.14 to 408.04. Unable to hold 384.90 to the 372.42 level will be tested on the downside if that low of the day breaks. So going to be leaning on the bullish side today. Bullish neutral, looking for a little bit of a bounce back to the upside. I think we get to around that 408 spot, and then we can see what's what if that level can actually hold. So that is mRNA. Let's take a look at this UPST. So UPST, a little bit of a flag actually forming on the daily. It's got the EMA resistance levels and supports. I'll stay high. Head and shoulders. All right, that should suffice. Let's take a look at this thing intraday. Perfect. Okay, so through 1916, guys, pivot to the upside today on this UPST. There we go. The sell is able to hold. We got room for continuation higher into that 326.81 resistance. That level breaks, 334.18 will be tested. Unable to hold, look for a pullback to 311.84 to 303.72. Going to be leaning bullish on the name today. We do have a flag on the daily. Need to break through last day's high for that confirmed break of the flag to the upside. And then we can see the next leg up. I think it's a good looking chart though for continuation higher. So we'll see what happens there. That's mRNA. That is UPST. Let's take a look at the next two, which are BNTX and AFRM. I'll screenshot these. All righty. So next two guys, BNTX, and then AFRM. So BNTX, similar chart to the mRNA, except that daily looks a little bit worse because you're below that 50 MA. It is extended to the downside into some daily support. So that is notable. Let's take a look at where we got room to today. What the levels are, yada, yada. So pivot to the upside today is going to be 290, 292.86. This level is able to hold. We do have room back towards the 303.47 to 318.60. Unable to hold 328.41, 372.17 on the downside will be tested. Going to be leaning bullish neutral, looking for a little bit more of a bounce. I want to see it at least test that 303.47, fill the gap, and then we can see what happens there. But it is extended to the downside, and we'll have to see if that pivot can be reclaimed or not. If it can't be, then obviously we'll see continuation back to the downside. All right, so that's BNTX. Let's take a look at Afrin, AFRM. So pulled back to EMA support, held it. News came out, which was positive in regards to the crypto-related trading that will now occur on the platform. I'm going to move this down a little bit. All right, let's take a look at this thing intraday here. Get rid of that. All right, 120.59 pivot to the upside today. This level is able to hold. They get room towards 123.08 to 126.70. Unable to hold. We look for pullback towards 117.54 to 113.26 on the downside. Overall on AFRM, going to be leaning on the bullish side today, looking for a continuation push higher if that pivot point can hold. So I do like the chart, do like the name. Tends to get bought up on dips as well, especially when there's news behind it. So I think that's a positive. So we'll be looking for a continuation push higher if pivot can stay intact. So that is BNTX. That is AFRM. All right, so next two, Elucid and GOVX. This Lucid's been quite a beast lately. Let's label last day's high as well. EMA support if you need it. All right, that should be okay. All right, let's take a look at this thing intraday here. All right, so last day's high will be the pivot to the upside today. That 26.43 level is able to hold. You get room towards 27.33 to 28.28. Unable to hold, we look for a pullback into the 25.39 to the 24.26 on the downside. Overall on Lucid, going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side only if that pivot point can be reclaimed. Pivot points reclaimed, we can see and look for a continuation push to the upside. Keep an eye on this little downtrend in the short term. They get a little bit of a rejection there in the pre-market. So that's going to be another big level to get through right by that pivot point. The pivot point in that should intersect, probably mid-morning. So keep an eye on those two levels. That is Lucid. All right, let's take a look at this GOVX. Which I can delete some of these old lines here. So a former runner that typically sells off after its pops, as we can clearly see. Pivot to the upside 560, levels able to hold. They get room towards 598 to the 651, unable to hold. 492 to the 444 on the downside. Going to be leading on the bearish side today, looking for a pop topping to take the name on the short side this morning. I do think it's going to give back its gains like it typically does. So we'll see what happens there. That is Lucid. That is GOVX. All right, let's save that real quick. There we go. All right, perfect. Okay, so let's take a look at the SPY and the FANG, my friends. Which is, what I mean by charts can be hard to read because we have this stupid misprint candle, which zooms everything out. Oh, hi. How far can I go out? That's fine. I don't mind it on the upside. Okay, perfect. That's good. Let's flip this over to the daily chart. So SPY, what's going on here? Pivot to the downside today, 436.07, which is also the weekly pivot now. See that big range right there, that 436.07. That level's able to be reclaimed. We got room back towards the 437.35 to 438.16, potentially 439.37. Unable to hold, we look for a pullback towards 434.45, 433.91. And then the 433.24 on the downside, which is last day's low. That level breaks, then we got other levels to the downside, as you can see. Overall on the SPY, I'm actually leading on the bullish neutral side today just because the market is opening up extended. I would love to see a pull this morning and then a bounce, because then the bounce would be much more sustainable. If we get a bounce right out the gate and the market's, then we have the potential for the market to fill that gap and, continue to roll over. The SPY in general on the daily doesn't look great. Daily doesn't look good. Weekly, we're below EMA support. Monthly looks fine, but certainly trends breaking, and we did get rejected at the 50 MA and the EMA or short-term EMA support on the reclaim. So does the SPY look bearish right now in the short term? Yes. Unless we get back above that 436 and hold today. So that's a key level to be watching, guys. Watch the pivot point. It's going to be big, 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 important level for the rest of the week. So that's a SPY. Let's take a look at Apple. Man, these misprint candles, my goodness. So almost a double bottom on Apple from yesterday. We can get rid of this 144.20. Doesn't need to be there. Pivot to the upside today, 143.52. Levels unable to hold. They get room towards 141.92 on the downside. That level's able to, pivot's able to be reclaimed, room towards 145.23. Overall on Apple, going to be leaning on the bullish side just because it is extended as well. I think we get a little bit more of a bounce towards that 144.30 level, and then we can see if it's is able to reclaim or it rolls over. But leaning bullish, neutral out the gate for now because of that extension. So that's Apple. Let's take a look at Amazon. And I'm just going to quickly save this. There we go. All right, so Amazon, guys, let's take a look. Stock pulled down into a double bottom area on the lows. Held that yesterday. Pivot to the upside, 33.40. Levels able to hold 33.63, 33.94. Unable to hold 33.20 to 33.02 on the downside. Inverted head and shoulders on the daily as well held. Going to be leading on the bullish neutral side as well, looking for a continuation push higher only if that pivot point can be reclaimed. So that is Amazon. Let's take a look at Netflix. $582.80 pivot, levels able to hold 590.02 to 595.75 will be tested. Unable to hold 575.06, 567.11. Netflix been holding that flag on the daily for quite some time. It actually is fairly bullish on the dips, continues to be bought up. Going to be leaning bullish on the name, looking for a continuation push higher. Stuck in this consolidative pattern, but can trade off to the top of that range. Don't think it's going to break out of the range today, but we can see what happens. That's Netflix. Let's take a look at on Facebook. By the way, I think SPY will probably be inside last candle today. I don't think we're going to get an outside day on it. Facebook. Let's see here. So double bottom on that thing yesterday. Didn't really get that much of a bounce. 342.80. 342.98. It's going to be the pivot to the downside today. Levels unable to hold. We got room towards 338.48 on the downside. If that level breaks, we see further continuation lower into the 333.85. Able to hold 346.94 to 350.48 will be tested on the upside. Overall on Facebook, leaning bearish, looking for a continuation lower today. So that is Facebook. Let's take a look at Google. Yeah, Google looks quite ugly as well, actually. All right. This is going to change. $767. That's what that level is. Let's just get rid of it, whatever. All right, 750, 66, pivot to the downside today, aka the 50 MA on the daily. Unable to hold, you got room for continuation lower towards 2713. Able to hold, 2792 will be tested on the upside. Overall on Google, leaning bearish, looking for a continuation lower if that pivot point's unable to hold. So that is Google. All right. Next up, VIX, Qs, IWM. So VIX guys obviously been holding up quite well here with the market pulling back. Pivot to the upside today will be the 2314 level holds. 2428 to 2523 will be tested. Unable to hold, we look for a pullback on the VIX towards that 2192 to 2079 on the downside. Pivot's going to be important, obviously, because it is flagging to the upside. So keep an eye on that. If it continues to hold above the pivot, market should continue to come in. So that's the VIX. Let's take a look at the Qs. QQQ. Just like the SPY looking ugly, actually looking worse, I'd say. So QQQ, let's see here. 360.64. Pivot to the downside today. Unable to hold, we got room towards 358.94 to 357.50. Able to hold, we can see continuation higher into the 362.84 to 363.98 on the upside. It is opening up extended to the downside today. I'll be leaning a little bit bullish, neutral, looking for a continued bounce. We're talking about like a 366 gap fill area. So it does have a little bit of room to bounce there. It's all going to depend upon tech though. You know, if tech doesn't hold up, then obviously Qs won't. So watch Microsoft, watch Amazon, watch Apple, Nvidia. See if those names hold up or not. And then last but not least, guys, IWM, which pulled back below the 50 MA. Okay, so we're testing it right here, right now. 2288 area. Levels able to be reclaimed towards 224.33, 226.43. Unable to hold. We look for a pullback towards 221.70 to the 220.21 on the downside. Looks like typically pullbacks to the 50 MA get rejected. So I'll be leaning on the bearish side today. You know what? I'll lean on the bullish side because it is a little extended too. So I'll be leaning bullish neutral. Just going to go with the extensions today, see if that works out. Of course, you know, you just trade the pivot. Pivot doesn't hold, sell off. Pivot holds, bounces, et cetera, et cetera. Alrighty, so that's a SPY, that's a FANG. Those are the individual names that we're looking at today, guys. I'm going to go ahead, pass over to South Beach while I type up the pre-market action plan, and then we'll do a quick little recap before the open. South Beach, if you're ready, it's all yours.
Hey guys, so I was just listening to Spartan's assessment of these indexes, and we are absolutely in the same camp. The setup is kind of crummy. The S&Ps look like crap. I'm looking at the other ones also. Look at the Qs, guys. Look at that break all that support and leaning down. Not a really great setup. IWM's a little better, and the transports were the first to look crappy. Kind of hanging in there, actually. So that's one thing I always look at first thing when I sit down in the morning, that and the 10-year, which we'll look at now. So the 10 years at 151, 1.517, down a little bit. Curve is flat, as you know, no change from last night. Here's an interesting thing I was reading. You remember when rates got to what, 175, 170, right? And I think, you know, the guy was saying basically that we were anticipating this GDP growth narrative. And then when they got killed, you know, the bond market, it was about this, what's this Delta variant. And now they're saying, okay, the Delta variant's gone. Let's go back up to that kind of level. And I think that makes some kind of sense to me. I don't think bonds are going to run away on the upside. I think a lot of the inflation is transitory, but I'll get into some of the guys who I respect what they're saying in a little bit. But anyway, bonds at 151, inflation north of 2%. Can't buy bonds. You're going to get hurt if you do. And you got to put your money in equities. You know, that being said, you know, this time of year is generally tough. Point of least resistance is probably, you know, flat to down a little bit. And I think, you know, as the calendar marches on and we overcome some of the hurdles that we have, market will do better into the final quarter. But anyway, let's look at some foreign bonds while we're at it. The 10-year in London is down a little bit, 0.98, but they've had a monster move over there. Okay, and since September, it's gone from 0.58 to almost 1%, which is a huge move. But in the scheme of things, it is 1%. Okay, don't look. Yeah, I'm going to talk about that, twins. Don't lose sight of the fact that it's 1%. So if you put your money in one of these things, after you pay taxes, you get bupkis. Okay. Germany's down. So across the board, rates are down a little bit. All right. Nothing major, you know, basically holding the gains, giving it a little bit. Let's look at the foreign markets. We got the FTSE up 0.8%, 58 points. The DAX is up 122 points, the same percentage, 0.81. Nikkei got slammed. It probably has to do with the guy they picked to run the country, because remember when they moved away from the current, I don't know what he's called there, prime minister or president, whatever the guy's called, the market shot up, and then they picked this guy and the market trades down like this. I kind of think one thing has to do with the other. China was down, what, about 1 or 2%, let's see. 1.1%, and Hong Kong was up a little bit, I believe. Let's see, yeah, up 0.6. Okay, so that's the indexes. Let's look at commodities. So oil's coming in a little bit, but natural gas is the one you got to keep an eye on, right? I think the natural gas prices are holding bond prices hostage, to be honest with you, because that's a big, you know, factor in everything from heating your homes to running your businesses. And it's, inflationary, and the price has gone from 2.5 to almost $6. It's down a little bit this morning, 0.17. Mark Fisher's going to be on TV at noon. He's really smart. I'm curious to see what he says. So that's what I think this natural gas market is holding the European bond market hostage for sure. Okay, that comes in, I think rates can come down somewhat. Gold is gold. Who cares? Copper's flat. Yesterday was the perfect day. Gold should have been up, and it wasn't. Therefore, I think gold is just a waste of time, to be honest. Cotton if you look at cotton prices, which I don't often look at, it's gone up like a rocket ship. Okay, I think this is a 10-year high, they were saying. What is it, a 102 a ton? It's up from like 80 in June, which is a pretty big move. Definitely an input cost for a lot of things, right? So again, a little bit inflationary. Dollar was strong against North American currencies, up a little bit there, up against the yen, up against the Chinese currency, and the euro, I think, is flirting with lows at 116.8. That currency's garbage lately. Okay. And that brings us to crypto. Crypto's bouncing a little bit, 1% on both Ethereum and Bitcoin. I guess Ethereum's up 2%. Okay, so crypto's that. I think the point of least resistance crypto is probably down, and you have that range, 40, 50. It's hanging in there pretty good. Okay, so that's that. Let's look at the Fed. We had Powell speaking yesterday, and you had Elizabeth Warren saying that he's a dangerous man. I would pose the opposite, that she's a dangerous woman, but I guess that's how you look at it. A little ridiculous, but hopefully he'll get to stay in. I think he's done a fabulous job. And we have that. And then we have the government jerking around again, pulling our chain, playing all kinds of nonsense games about, this bill they want to throw through and increasing the debt limits. You know what? They're a bunch of clowns. And then you had the general last night talking about Biden, how he told him to keep troops, and Biden said he never told me such a thing. Which one do you think is telling the truth? So that's that. Okay, so looking at our leadership, it's a pretty sad state of events from one to the other. It doesn't matter, Republican, Democrat, they all suck. And this woman is the head of the list. China. So nothing really new out of China overnight. Same old thing. I think these stocks are, you can't own them, but you can trade them, and they trade pretty well. They give you volatility during the day, and they're pretty thick, so it's good for that. Crypto I discussed, oil market we discussed. The virus, we had what's his name on TV, Scott Gottlieb. He thinks we may have a therapeutic by next year, which would be positive. And I think he said that New York was up to like almost 75-80% people either vaccinated or had the virus. So the immunity level is high, which is a positive. Okay, we had the dollar and Mr. Market. So yesterday, Mr. Market got pretty well slammed, right? It was led by, nothing was really positive, okay? It was just the degree of how bad. So the stocks you would think would be bad with the worst, acting, the high PE tech, the semis, the FANG. But everything else kind of was soft, solar EV, HMOs, bank stocks, hospitals, you name it, hotels, everything kind of had a crappy day. I came in this morning, the S&Ps were up about 30. We've given up about half the gains almost, maybe a little less than that. So I think the market has a headwind here. But remember, we're coming to the end of the month, right? So generally, the last 2 days of the month and the first 2 days are the most positive. So we have today and tomorrow. So the rest of the week is kind of fits that little, area where you do have the best time of the month. I see this edit's getting smoked here. I guess they came out with some news. Expect to see weakness in CRISP and NVTA on that. So that's that. What else do we have? Oh, let's talk about Rick Reeder. He was on TV last night. For me, you know, he's the go-to guy. He's been right. And Twins mentioned it. Did I see him? Yes, I did. So basically what he's saying is he doesn't think bonds are going to go up much from here. He thinks they found the level. Okay, I tend to agree with him. He likes the market. He thinks that prices are not so bad, and he's finding places to invest. He likes healthcare the most, and tech, and cyclicals, and he likes European banks, and he likes some retailers. Okay, but he was pretty positive on the market. He thinks that inflation is transitory, but remember how Powell was saying, you know, 2 to 3 months. Their work is showing 6 to 12 months before we get through these bottlenecks. So, and he says if they do raise rates by 1% or so, it doesn't mean diddly. It won't affect anybody. The margins are pretty strong across the board. Companies and individuals are have a lot of, you know, the best balance sheet they've had, and he was pretty constructive on the market. Okay. As far as research is concerned, let's take a quick look at that. What is this? Okay. Morgan Stanley was downgraded on price by OPCO. So that's the second guy in 2 days, I believe. Okay. HPQ was downgraded by JP Morgan, but only to a neutral, as was Valet by Morgan Stanley. I didn't realize Valet had gotten smashed the way it did until I looked at the chart this morning when I was looking at the research piece. The stock's really gotten tattooed. But Brazil's been a really tough place to invest. Okay, I mean, these stocks have just been garbage for a long time. You see something here, you know, and so I'm really not surprised at that. What else was on the sell side? Stevens Inc. reiterates his sell in Affirm, target 65. I obviously think he's wrong. Benchmark has a sell on Netflix, but he's been with a sell, so I'd ignore that guy. Lockheed Martin was downgraded to equal weight by a good analyst, okay, at Cowen. Von Rumour's his name. I don't know, it's just an equal weight, so I don't think you're going to trade it, so at least I'm not. Credit Suisse initiated this company TPL. I don't know it, I never heard of it. But the reason I'm bringing it up is they have an $800 target and the stock's $1,336. You know, I don't trade stocks over 500 in general, so it won't affect me, but maybe some of you guys care. And on the opposite side, on the long side, let's see, AA goes to a top pick and Morgan Stanley. Stock acts fantastic, guys. They raised the target to 62, stocks 51. That was interesting. Bank of America looked at some of these same kind of stocks, material stocks. They initiated TECK with a buy target 36, as did someone else. So if I could find it, there were two guys who like tech. Let's see. Yeah, Citibank and Bank of America. Okay. FCX initiated buy target. This part must be wrong because it said they initiated with a buy with a 30 target and the stock's 33, so that can't possibly be. There must be a misprint somewhere. Or the guy's an idiot, one or the other. Micron. So everybody will take a look at Micron, and the consensus was kind of, you know, business is going to get better. Citibank, I guess they were the most bullish because they were saying basically that the bottom looks near. Okay, so they think DRAM prices are going to rebound. Susquehanna was the most bullish with a price target. I think it was 125, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they went from 135 to 125. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if the stock, did better today than it is right now. So that's Micron. What else was there? Okay, here are the calls that I liked. PI. I thought this was a good call. So they make these tags. RFMD tags are being replaced by RFID. These guys make RFID, and they're seeing their tags in Walmart, which, I mean, can you ask for a better retailer than that? So I thought that was interesting. That's out of Piper Jaffray, whose research I normally don't care for, but I think that was a good point. Interesting. Bernstein upgraded Boeing. I think the Chinese are playing games with Boeing, trying to get something in return for buying Boeing planes. We'll see what happens with that. I think we should flip them the bird, but SPR equal to outperform, target 53 to 66. I like this one also. You remember I bought this one when in the, when the market was getting smashed. These guys are a supplier to Boeing, and the chart looks better than Boeing's to me. I think it's an interesting call. I like that one. Dollar Tree is going to start adding goods that are priced over $1, and there was a buyback in one of them. I think it was. I wrote it down. Hold on. Dollar Tree, $2.5 billion. So I think they have those two things going for them. And generally, Dollar General trades with Dollar Tree, so keep an eye on that one as well. So that was out. A couple of guys like this PSTG, strong buy at Raymond James, target 35, stocks 26. Let's see if there's anything else I like. So I kind of like MU a little bit. I like the PI call. I like the SPR call. And there's a stock I haven't traded in a long time. There's GREE, G-R-E-E. They're a digital miner. They have a 78 target over at Riley. I'm not real keen on Riley's research, but this stock really moves. I mean, this is a mover. It's traded 2 million already today. Stock's down from what, 500 and change to 23, and it's ripping this morning. So that's interesting. ALT, they're also saying that stock sell-off was overdone. Great call by Twins in that one again, to reiterate. Pivotal likes Comcast, target 75. So that's that. Okay, that's the research. Let's see if there's anything else. LCID is the plant's up and running. First delivery should be in October. Affirm is going into a crypto business rollout. Fold is doing a joint venture with ARYA. Dollar Tree we discussed. And numbers, WOR and CALM were positive. On the negative side, you had Micron, Schwab, and Jabil. You had a couple of offerings, LFMD, EQT. Okay, so those are down. Tonight you got Bed Bath & Beyond reporting earnings. Tomorrow you have Jeffries. Syndicate-wise, we have that direct listing from Warby Parker. Kramer really crapped on this company last night, saying it's way overvalued. He doesn't really love the business, so be careful on this one. The reference price is 40. And there are 3 secondaries, MEG, EQT, and LFMD. And Kathy was very busy yesterday, right? She bought Coin. She bought Square, Roku. She bought 400,000 DraftKings. She keeps buying Path, which has been a complete dog. 850,000 of that. SGFY, another dog. She bought 800,000 of that. PD, she bought 200,000. Hood, 200,000. Very busy yesterday. Zillow, 250,000. Been a dog also. And on the sell side, she sold a fair amount of Tesla, guys, 340,000, which was surprising. And she sold almost 200 grand of SE, and that's what she did. Okay, I think the point of least resistance is down. let's see how they trade today and come up with some winners. Okay, guys. Spartan, it's all yours, man.
Alrighty, thank you, South Beach. Morning, guys. What's going on? I just realized I posted the oh, one sec, guys. I posted these in the wrong area, didn't I? Yes, I did. All right, one sec. Let me just do this again. All right, so morning, guys. Let's just take a quick look at what we got going on today. I'm gonna actually pop this up, and I'll try to multitask this as I go, which I think I can do. So let's take a look at what we got going on today, guys. A couple different things that we're looking at. Pre-market tickers on watch. I'll show you the pre-market action plan in just a second here. There we go. So if you want to pause it and watch it, look at it. There you go. Everything's posted there. Let's take a look at what we got going on today, guys. What we've been looking at: mRNA, UPST, BNTX, Afrin, Lucid, then GOVX. mRNA bouncing sympathy with the market. Same with UPST and BNTX. Afrin to join PayPal and allowing users to buy and sell Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. LCID, Tesla rival Lucid says air sedan deliveries to start in late October. Booking crosses 13,000. Then GOVX stock is trading higher on Jetapin in licensing pack for solid tumors. All right, let's take a look at these names from a technical standpoint. Intraday. So first two we're going to be looking at are mRNA and UPST. So mRNA, UPST, let's take a look. So mRNA gapping down into the, or was extended to the downside into that 50 MA on the daily. That level is holding right now. Pivot to the upside today is 394.49. That level is able to be held. They have room for continuation into the 403. 14 to 408.04 level on the upside. Unable to hold. We look for a pullback towards the 384.90 to the 372.42 level on the downside. Overall on mRNA, going to be leaning bullish, looking for a continuation push higher today if that pivot point's able to hold. UPST 319.16 pivot levels able to hold. We get room towards 326.81 to that 334.18 level on the upside. Unable to hold. We look for a pullback towards the 311.84 to the 303.73 level if that level breaks. Overall on UPST, going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side today if that pivot point is able to hold. You have a flag on the daily. Does look quite good for continuation. We'll see if it's able to get it. Let's take a look at the next two, which are BNTX, Afrin. BNTX pivot to the upside today is going to be that 292.86 levels able to hold 303.47 to 318.60 on the upside will be retested. Unable to hold 282.41, 272.17 on the downside. Overall in BNTX going to be leaning bullish neutral if that pivot can be reclaimed. Still extended to the downside on the daily. We'll see if it gets a little bit of a bounce today. AFRM. Why does this look weird? One sec, guys. Reload that chart. There you go. 120.59 pivot to the upside today. Levels able to hold 123.08 to 126.70. Unable to hold 117.54 to 113.26 will be tested on the downside. Pulled back into EMA support on the daily. Some positive news came out. We'll see if we get a little bit of a bounce on that name today. So leaning bullish neutral on that. Pivot needs to be crossed. Else Lucid and then GOVX. Lucid 26.43 pivot levels able to be reclaimed towards 27.23 to the 28.28 level on the upside. Unable to hold 25.39 to 24.26 will be tested. Overall on Lucid, going to be leaning bullish only if we can get back above that pivot point, break the downtrend. Does look okay on the daily. Actually looks good. It's been acting well as well, but needs to get above that resistance point for continuation. GOVX 560 pivot, 598 to the upside, then 651. Unable to hold. 492, 444 leaning bearish, looking for a pop and topping on that name to take it short. Let's take a look at the SPY and the FANG. So market, obviously a little bit difficult to look at with this stupid misprint candle, but 436.07. 07 is the pivot to the downside today. unable to hold. Room lower into the 434.75 support. Breaks, we see the 433.91 level tested. If it holds, room higher into the 437.35. Resistance breaks, we see the 438.16 tested. Going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side, looking for pull and basing or pull and bounce. So the market is extended to the downside. I would like to see a pull out the gate and then a bounce. Looks like that's what we're going to get. The matter or the question is going to be how much of a pull do we get right out the gate, but we are extended on the daily and we typically fill those gaps. So we'll see what happens there. Apple pivot to the upside, 143.52 levels able to hold 145.23 to 141.92. Sorry, 143.52 unable to hold, then 141.92 to 139.93 will be tested on the downside. Overall on Apple, going to be leaning bullish neutral in that name today. Let's take a look at Amazon. Amazon pivot to the upside today is going to be that 33.40 levels able to hold 33.63 to 33.94 will be tested. Unable to hold 33.20, 33.02 on the downside, leaning bullish if we can get above that pivot point. Held that inverted head and shoulders on the daily. It's got room to bounce. Netflix pivot is going to be the 582.80 level, levels able to hold 590.02 to 595.75, unable to hold 575.06 to 567.11 will be tested on the downside. Going to be leaning bullish on Netflix. Been holding that flag pattern on the daily for quite some time. Facebook pivot to the downside, 342.98. If that level breaks, room towards 338.48 to 333.85. Able to reclaim room towards 346.94 to 350.48 on the upside, leaning bearish on Facebook, looking for continuation lower. Let's take a look at Google. Google pivot to the downside, 27.50 levels unable to hold. We got room towards the 27.13 to 26.85, able to hold 27.92 on the upside will be tested, leaning bearish on that name as well. Let's take a look at, last but not least, the VIX Qs IWM. So VIX 23.14, that's the flag pivot on the intraday chart. That level is able to hold 24.28, 25.23. Unable to hold, we look for a continuation lower into the 21.92 to 20.79 on the downside. Overall on the VIX, not leaning any direction, but using it for direction on the market as we do. QQQs, which do look heavy right now, 360.64 pivot, levels unable to hold, 358.84 to 357.50, able to hold 362.84 to 363.98 will be tested on the upside. Overall on the Qs, I am going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side, looking for pull and basing because it is extended to the downside by quite a bit. So I do think we should see a little bit of a bounce on that today. Then IWM, 222.88 pivot, levels able to hold 224.33 to 226.43, unable to hold 221.70, 220.21 on the upside or downside will be tested. And going to be leaning bullish on that only if pivot can be reclaimed. So we'll see what happens, guys. It's going to be an interesting day. It's all about pivot points. And if you guys don't understand what a pivot point is, it's just a major support or resistance level on the daily that pivots the price action. And like I said, if the price gets reclaimed, that you typically get continuation higher. Price breaks, you typically get continuation lower, simply put. So that's that. That's the SPY. That's a FANG. Those are the individual names that we are looking at today, guys. If you guys are joining us on the YouTube stream, we do this every single week. We'll see you next